I am your host, Danielle Mims. Welcome to Think Like a Kid, the podcast that helps parents and teachers stop guessing and start teaching the way kids actually learn. After working with hundreds of kids, I can promise you this: one-size-fits-all learning doesn't work. It's time to stop making kids fit the system and start shaping learning around the child. Each week, you'll get quick wins, creative ideas, and brain-based strategies to make learning hands-on and fun again. So whether you're in the classroom, the car, or halfway through your coffee, I am so glad you're here. Let's think like a kid. Hello. Welcome back to Think Like a Kid. I am so glad that you're here. Today we are doing a fun little listicle of 7 outdated preschool habits that I think all parents should leave behind and all teachers. And just because I'm saying these does not mean that I am a perfect parent, because I am far from that. And I literally, on this list, there are some that I actually do that I am actively trying to get myself to stop doing. So don't think that I have all this mastered. I do not at all. I'm doing this along with you. First time as a mom of 3, like every day is a learning curve and opportunity. So before anybody comes at me here, this isn't about being perfect and never using a worksheet or never using an iPad or a screen. It's just about realizing that some of the things that look the most educational are not necessarily educational. And it's not doing the most learning for our kids, if that makes sense. Because the goal of preschool isn't to make a 4 or a 5-year-old look like a tiny first grader or second grader. It's to build their brain at this formative stage that will be ready for first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, and beyond, because you built that foundation so strong. Okay, let's get into it. Again, it's not like black and white. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that these are very common practices that people get kind of hung on to because that's the way that we were brought up. So the first one, you've probably seen me post a lot about it on Instagram, but handing them worksheets and workbooks before their little tiny hands are even ready for them. So if your preschooler hates tracing or scribbles through a page or says, I can't do it after 30 seconds, they probably don't need more handwriting practice, right? So when I say not worksheets, that doesn't mean we're not focusing on handwriting, because that's very, very important. But we need to build those strength, those muscles in their hands and do fine motor activities so that they are ready to do that. But we often skip right to a cute workbook or a cute worksheet. And sometimes even if a kid doesn't even like the worksheet, it's probably not because of the content or the worksheet. It's probably because their hand is very fatigued. So I think 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds need Play-Doh. My kids are legit obsessed with putty. I feel like it's like a secret hack that I have, because everybody thinks they know about it. But then once you actually have putty with the beads, you can take your kids to like restaurants and all these things, and they will be not only building these muscles in their hands, but they will also be doing like imaginative play and just calming regulation. It's probably my favorite quote unquote toy that they have, because it's so amazing. It keeps them occupied and it has so many benefits. Again, so Play-Doh, putty. If you're like, I'm not into that kind of mess or whatever, you can do tongs. Legos are really good. If they get frustrated with Legos, there's those bigger ones. What are they called? I can't even think of it. It's essentially like a Lego, but it's just bigger. Cutting. My 2-year-old, my kids, even under 2, they used scissors. Just make them safe, watch what they're doing. If they're interested in scissors, you could get the fun shapes. You could even get scissors without a blade. You could have them rip paper. You can, if a kid's interested in a tool, I'm like, yep, we're using it, but I will watch obviously closely. Painting. I know. I get triggered by paint, but it is very good for them. Very therapeutic too. Digging, building, climbing, and then we're getting into like gross motor too. But all of these activities and techniques that actually prepares them for handwriting. So when you skip these things, like I often talk about like building like when you're building a building, it's like starting with like the windows, or like, let's talk about what the roof's going to look like, or the paint colors, when you really should be working on the foundation. So the future skill of handwriting, absolutely yes. I think it's a huge component, but when the preschool work that you're giving them doesn't look like handwriting, that's a good thing. That means that you're preparing those hands for the paper and pencil that they will get when they go to school. Okay. Number 2 is memorizing the alphabet before
learning to hear language in general. So when you think of ABCs and reading and language, and I want you to think of it from their ears, right? Like, how can you play with words? How can you not just quiz them on like, what letter is this? A, yep. What letter is this? B, yep. All that's great, right? They do need to know their letters, but reading eventually requires a child to understand what words are and what the sounds make, and putting them together and pulling them apart and comparing them and blending them and having them all manipulated. So yeah, teach the letters, but also rhyme, also clap syllables, also stretch out words. Also, take away the beginning sound and add a new beginning sound. Play a game. What starts like mom? What else starts like mom? Like play with the language and the words before the flashcards of A, B, C. Like get them excited to hear these patterns and the repetition of them and making those connections. So like in my house, we notice sounds everywhere. And even Kason, my second born, he's my 4-year-old. He thinks, but he's like, I'm a rhyming master. And you just give him a word and he's like, cat, fat, hat, mat, and he just goes on and on and on. And even if they're nonsense words and they're not a real word, that is still considered rhyming. Those nonsense words are so important for these early literacy skills. Okay, so I want you to use this one as like a takeaway of like, I'm going to play with sounds. I'm going to play with rhyming. I'm going to do these kinds of games without physically identifying letters, right? Like that's going to happen. Obviously, they're going to know their ABCs, but building that foundation around play and word play. Okay, let's see what I said for number 3. Number 3, yep, using flashcards as the main way to teach. So a child being able to recognize something that you showed them 47 times does not actually mean that they understand it. So we'll talk about math for a second. So if a preschooler memorizes that this shape, right? If we're doing a 5, they are just looking at the strokes. They're just looking at the picture and then, oh, okay, that picture that I see, that's 5 because you've drilled it in their head. Awesome. You just built their memorization, but that's them being able to see and just recite what that number is, not actually what 5 means, if that makes sense, right? So what does 5 actually mean? How can they build 5? Can they break 5 apart? Can they see those number bonds in between? Can they find 5? Can they count 5 on a single die? Can they realize that 5 dinosaurs and 5 Cheerios are 5 in total? Can they do what's 1 more than 5? What's 1 less than 5? Can they do all that stuff, right? Like and if you're in the preschool, every single deep dive week, we focus on a new number of really diving into that number, because I would not feel good about my curriculum if I did not drill in, but if I did not drill in what those numbers mean. Like you are going to have them master 1 through 5 of what they feel like, what they look like, what they can do. And then you're going to go to 6 through 10, right? And we do cover that, but it's really important to have your child understand what those numbers are instead of just, oh yeah, look at that shape. I can tell you that's like 5. That doesn't actually matter. It sounds good, but they don't actually know it when you ask them. Then you got to work on that. So number 4, this is one that I don't do. And I am proud to say that I don't do this, but I guess I used to, right? Like when I first became a teacher, but then after working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children and then having kids of my own, realizing very quickly that a kid sitting still does not mean that they're paying attention, right? And I think we need to all unlearn that. I mean, that's how we all thought learning happened, but it needs to die, essentially. Preschoolers, look, I taught 6th grade. They all need to move. And just because they're doing jumps or they're wobbling in their seat or they're standing up or they're laying down, they are learning. Like they're trying to figure out what works best for their brain so that they're able to absorb information and apply it. So preschoolers, what I mostly talk about is the early childhood. They can jump while they're counting. They can wiggle during a read aloud. They can touch everything that they see or that you're talking about. They can build letters with blocks instead of starting on paper or a whiteboard, because somewhere along the lines we have decided, and I've learned this too, like I don't know, 15 years ago. Crisscross applesauce. That's the way of the game for preschoolers. I need eyes on me, crisscross applesauce, hands in your lap, and they're going to be focused. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. And I will argue someone on this because I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've leaned into, okay, they're not going to just sit still. So let's like do something else. I'll give you a really quick tangent example. Okay. There was a second grade boy that I had, and he could not sit still. And it was driving everybody nuts. Like the tests, he would fail tests, right? Because he couldn't sit at a desk and do it. So anyway, I mean, I'm trying to really simplify the story. I was like, hey, Bobby, that's not his name, but I was like, okay, Bobby, we're going to go on a walk. And I had my clipboard with the test, and we're walking around the school. I had someone watch my class. I had an assistant, and I would ask him questions, and he literally aced the test. Because I was walking with him, he was moving, and he didn't have a pencil and paper. And if you're like, there's a whole argument about like, oh, they need to learn how to do this. Sure, they do. Like, there's adults who need to learn to have more patience. There's adults who need to learn how to, like, they're children, and I don't believe they should be penalized for something that they're struggling with or a certain way that they learn. So no, I knew he was so smart. I'm like, you did not just fail this test. Like, we're going to go on a walk, and he did great. Okay. He knew all of the content, and sorry about that little tangent. But anyway, kids can move. They do not need to be sitting at a desk in order to learn and absorb a lesson. I'm sorry. It's just not true. And I don't believe it. But I understand why we're so caught up with that, because if it looks like they're learning, then we're like, oh yeah, they're learning. But once you get really good at like formative assessment and asking the right questions, you'll be able to be like, oh, okay, like they weren't even looking at me, but they totally understood that. Okay. Once you get good at that, those little quizzes that you can do with your kid, you're going to be like, okay, it didn't look like they were learning, but they learned a ton, right? That's the kind of shift that I am trying to have on my page and on my podcast. The goal should always just be, is their brain engaged? And engagement is not a replacement word for fun, but I always like to say fun, because they will learn through play. They will learn through fun. Next one, correcting them the second that they're wrong. Okay. I know it's hard, but sometimes the best thing that you can do is wait and let them struggle. And that's really hard, right? Like, I always go to the puzzle piece example because that was me. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched your kid do a puzzle like on their own, and you're just like, turn it, just flip it. And then you're just like, just flip it, and you say it out loud, and they're like, okay, but just wait. Like, don't touch it. Don't intervene. Like, let them struggle and figure it out. It's going to be so rewarding for them when they do. And it's a lot of learning going on. And it's a lot of resilience building and perseverance and, shaping who they are as a learner. I promise you. So let the tower fall. Let them count 6 objects and say there's 7. Right. And then you can say, how could we check that? Instead of saying, nope, try again. Just be like, oh, are there? Let's check. Can you show me? Right? Because the goal is not to raise a kid who waits for an adult to tell them whether they're right or wrong. The goal is not to have them get every answer right. The goal is to raise a kid that thinks, okay, that didn't work. What else could I try? We don't want them to give up. We don't want to, make them think that it's easy to get the right answer right away, because it's not. It will never be. And learning will just get harder. Life gets harder. Social relationships get harder. So this is all building a part of who they are. This kind of goes with that one, but making getting it right the exciting part. So look, I have 3 kids, and when they bring me things, I'm like, oh, so cool. Good job. Yeah. It's like this like monotone, like robotic response that I have. I mean, I'm 24/7 with them, and it is a lot, right? But we need to be more intentional. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself too. So instead of just focusing on the end result, like, good job, you got it right, or good job, look at that tower you built. Like, yes, say those things. Sure. But I'd much rather preschoolers get addicted to the process rather than addicted to the approval. Because when they focus solely on the end result and they know that they're getting attention from adults or from others for that product, we're taking away the enjoyment and the love of the process. And I will tell you, as they get older, it gets harder. Okay. So if you can do anything this week, today, focus on your child loving the process, narrate it, talk about it, model it. You kept trying even though things were hard. I am so proud of you. You could do a pretend call to your husband or to their grandma. And, instead of saying like, they just built the coolest tower. Can you believe this? They're only 5. I do that stuff too. But being like, okay, look, I cannot get over how Liam just kept going. Things were so hard. His tower actually broke. He didn't give up. You play into that and you reward them by talking about their resilience and their perseverance. And that will be internalized to them to focus on the process and not just on the product. So that is something that I am very passionate about because I've seen so many 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders who can't handle failure. And I wonder maybe if that was reinforced a little bit early on, if things would be different. So anyway, I want a kid who's willing to wrestle with the idea of failure instead of just giving up. The next one is thinking that an educational screen is the same thing as doing it. I'm not anti-screen at all. Like, I love a good movie night. I think there's a time and a place for iPads, and there's some phenomenal educational content out there. The first one that pops into my head is Khan Academy Kids. I literally love them. Or you can even go on YouTube and my kids don't even know YouTube exists besides certain things that I'll find. But I know kids already know that they can watch anything that they set their mind to, But anyway, there are cool things like watching kids mix colors, and it's like a kid watching a kid doing that. It's like the social thing. It's cool. But watching another child mix colors is not the same thing as your child mixing the colors. So they're watching a kid have this awesome experience. They're not doing it. Okay. I get it. I know it's hard, but it's probably a hard pill to swallow. It's just not the same thing. They will not be learning what that child is that they're watching. And I know that's kind of like a popular thing right now, or there's apps and things that you could do where you're dragging the digital blocks and building a tower. That's awesome. My page is STEAM, right? The T is technology. I love technology, but I will tell you that dragging those digital blocks is not the same thing as figuring out why your tower kept falling, right? These are opportunities and learning experiences that I talk about that we should really be focused on our child experiencing instead of just watching someone doing it or doing it with an application. So again, watching, another point that comes to mind is watching an animated seed grow online. That's not the same thing as planting one and checking it every single day, watching it, and it's doing nothing, but you're watering it and you're watching it. And then one day there's a little sprout that comes out and they are going to lose their everlasting mind when that sprout appears. If you have not tried that with your kids, do it, because that experience is something that's shaping their brain wiring and is helping them become this confident, curious learner. So yes, screens have a place. I do like them. I really do. But preschoolers, they need to touch. They need to move. They need to talk. They need to build. They need to dump. They need to pour. They need to predict. They need to test. They need to fail. They need to try again. And a bonus one I want to throw in really quick is trying to make preschool way more academic so that they will be ahead of their peers. This is probably the biggest reframe, because if you want your child super prepared for kindergarten, that doesn't mean that you need to do and recreate kindergarten earlier. So when your kid goes to school, I'm sure they're going to do worksheets. I'm sure they're going to be sitting still. I'm sure they're going to be doing drilling, and they're going to be doing more school-like things, right? But earlier does not automatically mean better. So preschool is where we get to build the things that the academics depend on later on. So what do I mean by that? So when your kid goes to kindergarten, they are going to thrive and be well ahead of their peers if they have mastered curiosity, if they've mastered language, if they've mastered number sense, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, problem solving, confidence, persistence, resilience, self-regulation, the ability to wonder, test, fail, and try again. social skills. I mean, the list goes on of those foundational skills that we should be implementing into our children before they go to kindergarten. So that's what I built my whole curriculum on. I mean, I have academics, absolutely. Early language and literacy and phonemic awareness, absolutely. Number sense, absolutely. I also have STEAM experiments every single day, which is the main learning activity, so that your kid can go through all of those 21st century skills naturally. And it's literally through play. So you don't have to choose between, having them just play or worrying about where they're at academically. You can just follow a plan that's designed for ages 3 through 5. So I will link that below. And if you're like, I just want to know the standards or whatever of what they need to know, I will also list my link for my free early learning standards guide, which is what the preschool is all built around anyway. I know this one was kind of like a lot, but it's something that I feel very passionately in my heart and want to get that message across. And I'll probably, keep repeating it until I'm blue in the face. But I love this early childhood game, and I love being a parent, and I love helping others, and I love failing myself and figuring it out, because the kid right in front of you will teach you more about early childhood than any book or degree or any person could ever teach you. It's really just about honing into who they are, what makes them who they are, their likes, their dislikes, their passions, their triggers, all of these things of what make them who they are, and then being able to think on their level and then applying different learning opportunities and experiences to them. So I hope that you gained something from this list. Maybe just pick one habit that you might have and try to be intentional this week and report back, because I love hearing from you. And I am going to end this because it is past the 20-minute mark, I am sure. I hope that you have a great week and keep thinking like a kid.
Thank you for listening to Think Like a Kid. If this episode gave you an idea, a reframe, or a little win, the best way to say thank you is to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It helps more parents and teachers find these conversations, and honestly, it means the world to me. Until next time, friend, keep meeting kids where they're at and keep thinking like a kid.